Greetings and salutation, friends, family, kindred, fellow earthlings, if you will. We are celebrating World Interfaith Harmony Week. That's the first week of February, February 1st to 7th, every year since 2010. And it was founded in order to bring a conversation originally between Muslims and Christians, and then it was very quickly signed by the United Nations, and ever since then we have been celebrating it. I personally have been celebrating it for about 3 or 4 years, and last year I had the pleasure of having a conversations with Drs. Hari and HemaHari, who were at the time in Chennai while I was in Washington, D.C. This year I actually am in Chennai, and I could not let the opportunity go by without meeting with them and continuing our conversation, picking up where we left off, which is I don't quite remember. But we might have to start from the beginning and take it all again. There's so much to learn. They're experts in Hindu cosmology. And my goal or my objective and my vision is that we will have a new covenant with the cosmos. You see, I'm concerned that we'll do space the way we have done our home planet Earth. Because somehow we have followed the conviction that the Earth belongs to us, and not that we belong to the earth. I want to learn from the indigenous peoples and make sure that as we move forward as a spacefaring civilization, we go forward with the mindset that the cosmos do not belong to us. We belong to the cosmos. And so I believe that having interfaith conversations, moving this conversation from just mere science into the pulpits, the pews, the pandits, having our teachers and our lay people become conversant with what our faith say about God's creation might help us stave off what seems to be an encroaching Cold War in space. We want space really to remain a zone of peace for all humanity. So our conversation today is to see what might we learn from Hindu cosmology to help us prepare our mindset, to prepare those of us who are space advocates and enthusiasts and actionists to have a better handle on a long-term view of time and humanity's role in time and space. And I think we have a lot to learn from the Vedanta and other ancient scriptures of India. So thank you so much, Dr. Hari and Dr. Hema, for taking time to meet with me.
Thank you, Dr. Claire. It's so wonderful, and welcome to Chennai. It's so wonderful to be meeting in person and having this conversation in person. And so, sometimes, space is too huge, but it's nice to have very little space between us as well. And to really have this conversation in person, it's wonderful. Welcome once again. And yes, we also shared your concerns. And there is a lot that we feel that this civilization and its knowledge base can offer to how we can think about space, we can look about space, and the largeness, the largeness of space that this civilization has seen, both two ways. If you look at the literature, there is talk about space travel. Yet at the same time, there is also information about experiencing space from mind, within the mind. So stilling the mind to a state of no space and bringing it, reducing it to be able to look at the vast space and then look at the motion in space by stilling your mind as well. So this, our civilization has actually grappled with space in both the realms of really physical as well as from the aspect of mind. And it'll be lovely to see how we can leverage all of this to, meet the challenges that you so beautifully voiced out. And it is going to be a growing concern in the coming decades.
Yeah. Well, my question has been how we share space. And I want to start with the physical. So we always hear about Hindu astrology, and a little less about Hindu astronomy. So if you could kind of share with me a little bit is the difference or the similarities in how that might be taught to a young Hindu high schooler. So talk to me like I'm in high school. I'm 11. I know nothing.
First of all, thank you for having us. It's wonderful to be interacting with you in person. And you are young, no doubt about it. You are in high school. On the point that you said, a very poignant point. We have a statement that we have been saying for many years now. This earth is part of that sky, that space. So people commonly think earth is here and sky and space is there. This earth that we live in, terra firma, that we think everything about, our only home as of now, is actually a small blue dot in that sky. We are there. That's a reality. But unfortunately, most of us don't see it that way or don't see it as reality. And the other word you used wonderfully, you used the word called cosmos. Very important word that used cosmos. Till a few decades ago, especially from a lot of literature coming from different parts of the world, Europe, America, Australia, everywhere, they often used a phrase called cosmos is chaos. Because there's so much happening in the cosmos and it was unfathomable, beyond fathom. That is how it was. In the Hindu philosophy thought, since you mentioned the term, what we call as the Bharata civilization thought, we have not looked at cosmos as chaos. We have looked at cosmos as an order. It's got a rhythm to it. And we use the Indian word for it called Rita, from which comes the word rhythm itself. English word rhythm itself, the word Rita, it's very ancient word of many millennia old. And everything that is moving around has got a certain sense of order, that is Rita, rhythm, and it's not chaos at all. And all this movement that you see in space is actually mathematically explainable, mathematically measurable, and you can map and draw it mathematically. So there is deep sense of maths to it. The subject maths, we call it as Ganitham in the Indian languages. That is just weighty, heavy and deep. That's what we call the subject mathematics in the Indian languages. And space astronomy, looking up beyond the atmospheric layers into space, we have the term called Akasha. Because the levels with which the air can travel, we call it the Vayu Mandala, where the air moves. Beyond the air moves is what you get to the space. So we had a separate term for it. We call it Akasha. That is beyond. And there is specific sciences for it, how it happens, and the energies therein that operate in that. So there are different energies operating at levels where air operates, and there are different energies that operate where beyond air operates. That's called an area of Akasha. That again has been voluminously dealt with, discussed and written about in our literature. That's commendable because, as you mentioned, another key point, the Western science we use for lack of any better term, what you find in Europe and US and Australia, other parts, is, you said it's of recent origin, probably a few centuries of origin, and that probably 400, 500 years since the times of Galileo. And it's done commendable progress. The advancement has been commendable and much to be appreciated and respected. At the same time, in the Indian knowledge system, the study of all this, of the sciences per se, it goes back millennia, probably 5 millennia. If it is 400, 500 years of antiquity in Europe, it goes back to 4,000, 5,000 years antiquity in the Indian knowledge system. So that is the expanse that we have. And many of the modern questions being asked have also been asked here by the various, what we call Rishi, the people of seeking knowledge. And they have come up with their own way of analyzing it, pondering over it, studying nature and coming up with answers that have withstood the test of time across centuries. And we have two terms in our system. One is called jnana, that is knowledge. Incidentally, look at the word jnana, that is a word used in, it's phonetically so similar to the word knowledge, to know, Gnostics, gospel. So all the Gnostics are people of knowledge. So Nya, so that is to know. So it's wonderfully similar. So, and people who dwell deep into knowledge, who are incisive into knowledge, who get into the bottom of something, that is called Vijnana. You add a prefix of Vi, meaning you go incisive, you go deep, you do a special study. So we have had these two concepts. To know is jnana, to go deep into study, deep into research, we call it Vijnana.
So let me ask you a question. From the point of view of, let's say, in modern India, we know that India is very powerful in the space community. They made history, right? Because they landed safely on the South Pole, I believe, of the moon as the first country. That was like not expected. I mean, after all, India is a quote-unquote poor country, developing country, the global south. But they did it with less money, less fanfare, and so everybody was in shock that actually India was for. But I believe that that was precisely because somebody in the Indian Space Agency must be studying these things, or has an advisor who is saying, hey, did you go back and look at this chart to see if we can figure out a shorter way to do this than just using the modern mathematics? Am I totally off base here? Or is it something that you think could have happened? Because I really believe that there is so much that is unknown in the West. And there's an assumption that ancient cultures have nothing to teach. It was all, what do you call the word, fabrication, or all just...
mythology.
Yeah. But indeed, if you say like it's been thousands of years of studying the stars, and in the same way that many of the Western scientists, Einstein and those guys, intuited these equations, the famous E equal mc square, he himself said it just dropped into his head, right? Well, for all the meditation that has been happening in India way before then, I'm sure those equations were like intuited way back when. So how is that being taught now for like Indian scientists today who are working on the challenge of getting to the moon in real time, in now time,
Very
physically?
Good. Yeah, I got your point. Very good question you asked.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking this pertinent one. See, Albert Einstein, the great scientist, a very great scientist, he himself expressly writes in his work, not only for this equation, but the other wonderful things that he found out and shared with humanity. He writes a lot of his inspiration came from Sanskrit literature. He specifically writes about it, and we quote it in our works. He does mention that expressly, that he does. That's one. And when we were coming here, we drove past the Madras Port Trust on our way here. So that's where the port, the old port of Chennai, which is called Madras those days, a little more than a century and a couple of decades ago, was there. And very interestingly, when we drove past that place, my thoughts went to the great mathematician Srinivasa Ramanujan, who was an employee of the Madras Port Trust, and he wrote amazing formulas in maths, even now being used in the computer age and in space research, which he deduced and wrote down those equations, mathematical scientific equations, which are still being studied after 120, 130 years of his demise, his premature demise. He was in with Professor Hardy in Cambridge, in England. He had the opportunity of going and working with them there, and he was a clerk, an accounts clerk in the Madras Port Trust, and from there he had the good fortune of going and working in in the United Kingdom, then a century ago, a little more than a century ago. And he incidentally very clearly says, people have asked him, how did these formulas come to you in your mind? Because he had given formulas and solutions for which the questions have not yet been thought of.
Wow.
This is about 120, 130 years back. And he told him it's a divine mother of his native village, a mother goddess called Namagiri, who came to him in his dreams and she gave it to him, and he penned it down. And
that is how you find many of the great literary works. Everything you will find people attributing it to some divinity. In India, you'll find it being attributed to a divine god or goddess coming and giving it to them, and then they developing it further. And of course, it's called intuition everywhere. The beauty lies in the word that people use for such people who have been able to see all these kind of formula or sciences. They're called drishta in the Indian language.
Spell it.
D-H-R-S-H-T-A. Drishta.
Drishta.
Drishta. Because drishti means sight. So these people are those who have been able to see the phenomenon. See, after all, what is science? Science is describing the phenomenon as we perceive it today, as we measure it, as we are able to describe in our lingo of whether maths or physics or whatever kind of equations. It is our perception of that phenomenon which is happening all over.
Yes.
The phenomenon is not science. Your understanding of the phenomenon is science.
Thanks for clarifying that. The phenomenon is not science. It is our understanding of it, which is the science.
Which is science. The phenomenon is the truth.
Yeah, I'm reading a book now called Believing is Seeing, in which an American astrophysicist or some version thereof, he studied three things because he had to study three things: mathematics, physics, and something else. And then he said he went back to being Christian. He studied lots of other religions. He said he decided to go back and be Christian because the ones he felt most comfortable with, because he grew up in a Christian church. In college, he became an atheist. But the deeper and deeper he got into astrophysics, he realized that there had to be there's order.
Order.
And so he could no longer be an atheist, because he says most of science you take on faith anyway. So I'm not finished the book yet, but one of the things he said was, there is more space that is unknown.
Yes.
Dark energy that is unknown, like we only can explain 10% or 3%. And even the unknown,
4%.
Right, and even the unknown, he said, there is more unknown
yes.
that we don't even know yet.
Yes. Actually, there's a beautiful correlation. They say that space, if you take the space scientists, they will say that we only are able to account for 4% of matter in space.
Right.
96% we are not able to account, we don't know. That is on one side. You go to people who are experts in neurosciences, they say that we are using just 4% of our brain capacity. We are not using 96% of our brain capacity. Look at the correlation.
Yes.
So there is something that, and like we say now, science is what we are perceiving today. And that's going to keep on. In fact, our ancient scientist, BharathGyan, who is one of our ancient astronomers, he says science is a growing body and it will keep on progressing with time, because as our understanding increases and grows,
we hope.
So will, we hope. We hope, yes. So which is what makes, science seem like a current contemporaneous understanding of mankind, of what is actually happening, nature's phenomena, the cosmological phenomena, the actual truth. And the Hindu, Indian thought and many other ancient civilizations, they approached that truth from the angle of science and spirituality.
Yes.
That's when you get that complete picture of that truth. Just one alone is not enough. which is why we had these people called as Drishta. And it's amazing that the English translation for this word is seer. You know, we use the word seers, S-E-E-R.
Yes, we
and
know the
that's
word
a seer. He's seeing. It's so
Yes.
beautiful, you know, how
You know,
they
I
have,
actually just realized that seer is seer.
seer.
The
Yeah, the one who is seeing, seer.
Yes.
The seer sees beyond the horizon.
Yes.
Your mechanical eye and your physical eye can see only up to the horizon.
Wow.
A seer can see beyond the horizon. That's the beauty of it. Traditionally, all across, as she said, in most Oriental civilizations, we have this thought. The seer sees beyond.
Do you think that from the way that Hindu philosophy is taught, that where we are in space right now, in terms of space sciences, is where we're supposed to be in, I guess the Indian term for it is a yuga, a cycle, right?
Yes.
Is that, are we supposed to be doing this, or are we ahead of ourselves? Because we're so backwards emotionally and spiritually as a species. I don't know if we're ready for the power. You know, that's a big question I have.
Very good question you asked. I'll take the lead from where Hema left on this point. She said about science and spirituality.
Yes.
We have to combine both and see both in totality, in unison, in cohesion, cohesive nature. We have a very ancient literary text called the Ishavasya Upanishad. It's as old as the Veda, probably 5,000 years plus old, 5 millennia old text, and it's been coming down to us through constant recitation, chanting. In one of the verse of the Ishavasya Upanishad, we have made a short film on it also. It's in our YouTube channel. You can share it with your friends later. It's a very short 3-minute film.
Yes.
Where it says, very clearly the verse says, if you look at only science, you will go into darkness. If you go looking into only spirituality, you will go into even greater darkness. You need to bring in both together, juxtapose both together, science and spirituality. Then you will see the light that you're looking for. You can't look at A or B alone in isolation. You need science, you need spirituality, and you need a good intertwining of both. And that's when the answer will be simple. This is what Dr. Roger Penrose, who did a lot of research and he got all the awards, Nobel laureate a couple of years back. He speaks about when we see both. He made the statement a few decades ago. And he said, when you see both together, you'll find that the question is simple and the answer is simpler in the cosmos.
I guess I'm trying to find them myself because I feel driven, if you will, to an interfaith perspective. As a child growing up in Jamaica, I remember when I was going for, you had to study to become confirmed in your church. And I used to ask questions like, but why is there only one way to God? Why can't we have more than one way? Oh no, it's only. I said, but how could God be so unfair? This is not fair. If God is a just God, why would God do this to other people? I don't get it. And I would be leaving Sunday school crying because I was just very uncomfortable. I can understand that I am a Christian, but why can't people be godly and be Hindu or Baha'i or whatever? So it was a very uncomfortable space for me. And I didn't come back to the church until I was in my 1999, I think my 30s, I believe. And I found a interfaith chapel. And when I walked into this very small storefront place, I said, oh, finally, I can be home because I can think whatever I want to think. Nobody's going to attack me and say, you're not a proper Christian. You know, I can be whatever kind of Christian I want to be. And so finally, I am now ordained as an interfaith minister. And now I'm bringing it to my science because I'm saying we have the power of slicing a gene. We have the power of synthetic biology. We can clone things. We're now talking about artificial intelligence. People are talking about life extension, transhumanism. I said, for what purpose? For what purpose? Our science is ahead of our spiritual development. We're still like 2-year-olds throwing temper tantrums. Are we really ready for going to space? And so my thing is that then what is the role of the faith teachers and leaders? Yes, I know that all over the world, people have stopped believing in faith. Some people are now coming back because the emptiness of being faithless, they might as well believe in something, right? So they're changing their religion from Judaism to Buddhist or whatever, but they're going back to some credo that gives them peace of mind. But I was just going to ask you again, as in the Hindu temples today, how is this being talked about in terms of India's race to be part of this human race for space, from living on the moon, for example?
Actually, in India also, these two are currently being looked at very separately. The intertwining is not happening enough. There are, and neither are happening enough either. I mean, the pursuit of the two silos, there's a lot that needs to be done as well in both the spheres. But interestingly, what could help is, he just mentioned about Roger Penrose saying that the question has to be simple, the answer is also has to be simple.
Yes.
See, the simple, what is simple? What is easy? Is to be natural. See, if your nature is something and you have to do something different from your nature, that's when you're going to get stressed and you have to exert yourself to do something beyond what you really are. So nature, your natural order, and we have a beautiful word for that, which is dharma. So dharma. So all
dharma.
these, dharma, the Buddhist, Jain, and all the Orient, Tao, all these civilizations of the Orient,
The Buddha.
the dharma. So what is this dharma? If people can get an understanding, and that is actually very simple too, because we end up trying to complicate and defining it in so many words, sometimes that itself gets to be very complicated. It's very simple as your true nature. So nature, the word dharma comes from what you bear. Bearing. Dharma means to bear. So what you bear, what any other living being bears, what the earth bears. So there is a true nature for everything. The earth, the cosmos. It is.
But what if the true nature of human being is to always be at war then?
Not necessarily, because then see, war gives you stress, it gives you discomfort, it gives you sorrow. So what is your true nature will not give you all of that. Your true nature will only give you happiness. So if you're warring, then you better realize that that's not your true nature, you're going against it. So if you start thinking from that perspective, you will know every time there is a binary logic, a question, this or that, and you have to make your choices, you will know which is giving you more comfort. For you, you just said you realized that when you went into the interfaith chapel, you felt more comfortable, more at ease. Because that is nature. I mean, not everybody sees that. See, we speak about intuition, about a Ramanuja getting it. Intuition, why should it only be for Indians? No, everybody gets it. Whether it's a Galileo or whether it is an Einstein, everybody gets intuition. Everybody can get it, and it is there. Any human will get it. So it is this particular civilization has come up with techniques that can keep your brain going in that rotation. See, we are saying about 4% usage. So this is a civilization which has been training its brain very methodically so that more than a few can get that kind of intuition. More number of people can be in that level that they can get intuition. So that is one of the highlights, the strengths of this particular civilization, which has come over 5,000. I mean, fundamentally, we have held that continuity, which has been lost in many places. So you don't have that thread to hold on to. mankind has survived all over this world, all over this earth, and he has done so because he has got all these skills everywhere, wherever the people were. So it's here we have that continuity, we have that knowledge base that we can leverage. Those techniques are there, which we ourselves have to put to use little more. And perhaps the few who are able to crack, if you look at it, it could come down to them genetically. It could have come down to them. We have a word called sanskar. Sanskar means the way, it's the tradition, it's the habit and the culture, the practices that people do. So from childhood, if they keep chanting and all of that, then their brain is that much more
prepared.
tuned and is better.
What is the school of thought that India's gift to the West is spiritual science, and then supposedly the West gift to India was physical science? I'm not sure how true that is, right? Because the fact is, with 1 billion people, you must have known something about medicine and healthcare
yes.
all these years, right?
We have
But
lots.
I just really passionate about trying to figure out how do we capture some of this information, this knowledge, in ways that we can educate those of us in the space movement who really want to learn very quickly how to avoid supporting even emotionally then or subconsciously a Cold War in space. So we talk about space for all, but we see preparations of, different countries line up, going to build weapons, etc. Then if we build a weapon, and maybe one day we might be tempted to use them. And so recently I've been thinking, oh my God, the Bible, Revelations talks about chariots falling from the sky. Oh my God, those are the satellites that are falling from the sky. It's not God doing anything, it's we are doing it to ourselves. So that's my latest thing. For the last 3 years I've been obsessed with this idea. And I'm like, okay, but what if enough of us actually start writing or speaking or find an interfaith conversation to say, what can we learn from the various points of truth? It's like truth is one and truth is many. That's a very difficult context. Most people don't understand when I say truth is one, truth is many. So the Christian truth is a truth, Hindu truth is a truth, and that's a spiritual logic, that's not a physical logic, right? True. Because at the end of the day, we all come from the same ocean of consciousness. So from your perspective, how can cosmologists like yourself begin to write or teach some of these basic ideas? I can take a break now,
Yes.
and we come back.
Yes.
Thank you.